Good evening. Welcome to Living Hope Online. We're so excited to have you guys with us here tonight and joining us. Yeah. Oh my gosh, my phone is on, so now I'm hearing the echo of everything I'm just saying. Nothing's quite disorienting like all of a sudden hearing yourself play back 20 seconds later. No, it wasn't. It wasn't too bad of a delay. So that's good. You're almost getting it real live like it could be. if you were sitting right here with us. Hey, but welcome. We're excited to have you here. I'm always excited to be back up here with you guys. I wasn't here a couple weeks ago, and it's always, I don't know, it's great to watch, but it's just different, and I enjoy being able to be up here and interact in this way. If you're new with us, hopefully you're willing and ready to engage in a conversation. You're always welcome just to watch, but man, do we love it. So many people had so many great comments a couple weeks ago as we were engaging in conversation. It was really cool to go back and be able to see that and just watch how you guys interacted. That makes it so much better for a lot of reasons. One, because our whole point in doing this is to be able to interact with you. I mean, we like each other well enough, but we really want to be able to interact with you as well. And we want to give you a place where you have a voice and you can speak, I guess, quote unquote, speak, and interact with us as well. And if you're new with us or if you've been with us a lot, we hope that you know that it's a place where you can speak freely and you can share ideas and thoughts and experiences, and all of that's okay. And you're not going to be met with, some wrathful judgment from us or anything else like that. Because your comments, honestly, they add so much to it and are very on point. So we appreciate that. The last week, and I already forgot, and I meant to write it down, Carrie, you had like a great, this is what we're calling this series, and I forgot it. And it was so simple, but it was good. Why go to church?
Why come to church, or why go to church?
It was one of those two. Yeah, and so we started that conversation last week. If you were with us last week and heard that, it was a great conversation. If you weren't with us, go back and find that video because they just did a great job of discussing some of that last week and giving us a good intro into all of that and one facet of why would I come to church? Why come to church? And so we're continuing that this weekend for the next couple of times that we meet. And as we do that, again, we're really excited to be able to hear from you. In a second, we're going to get started. We're going to introduce ourselves, as always, and we're going to kind of get going. I want to give you guys time, although you don't need that much time. Well, I guess it takes you some time to type, right? But I want to give you a little bit of time to get started to share. I think that's always a little bit helpful. And what we're going to start off talking about, we didn't do any prep. You guys don't get to always see behind the scenes. Usually, if I'm up here, we talk about what we're going to talk about, and I give them questions ahead of time.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that. So this is...
No, I took over the conversation to talk about Harry Potter. So
Yeah, and it was fun. That's what we were, so that's what we were chatting about beforehand. So they're going to be as surprised as you are right now. Only they're in front of a camera and you're not. So you win, I guess, out there in Facebook world. So I want us to start off by just telling about a time when you encountered somebody who was not who they claimed to be. And we can do this. Actually, this isn't what I was thinking, but I want to do this in two. You can do this in two ways. You can do it in like a real way. Somebody you actually encountered in real life who didn't they presented themselves one way. As you got to know them, they were somebody different. They weren't who you thought they claimed to be. Or if you want to do this in a little bit more fun of a way, more of a funnerest way. I'm not 100% tonight. But if you want to do this in a fun way, maybe do this in like a movie, TV show, book, like somebody who is like a character who turned out to be different than who they said they were going to be or who you thought they were going to be. You can do either one. Give us an example of that. You guys start typing and also kind of listening to who we are and as we start answering.
Oh, man.
To my left, we'll introduce ourselves first. To my left, we have...
I'm Carrie McIntosh.
And to my right...
Hi, everybody. I'm Susan Cotton.
And now everyone knows your last name.
Sorry, I usually say my last name.
I never do, I don't think. I'm Justin, and you'll never know my last name. Until you see my name online. Hey, as you're starting to type, know that we have Facebook pulled up, and we can see your comments. That's part of the whole point. And we want to be able to, so we may even read out like what you read or what you typed, and be able to share that out.
John Gibson said funner.
The funnerist?
Funner. He just said funner.
Funner.
He's trying to call you out on grammar.
Yeah. You'll be all right, John. I'll start calling you out on grammar, and then we'll see what happens. I'll have Carrie in my corner. She knows all the grammar stuff. Actually, both of you know all the grammar stuff more than I do. All right, so we're getting started. Somebody who is different than who you thought they were going to be. Again, real-life example, maybe leave out names if it's a real-life example, or like a character from a book, TV series, something like that you thought was going to be one person, turned out to be somebody else. Ready? I feel like yours has to be a Harry Potter example because we were just talking about it.
No,
Ready?
it hasn't read enough books to actually answer that fully.
Go. Who's going first?
And I don't want to do any spoilers, but I do have a real life. So years ago when we lived in Oklahoma, I worked for a general on the Air Force Base. And working in the front office, people behave in a certain way, and they treated me in a certain way. And then I took a different job that was down the hallway, not far, but I didn't work directly for the general anymore. And some of those people started treating me differently.
Ooh.
It was really interesting.
A lot
I was
better?
like, no.
I didn't think so.
So
that
you
was
worked for the
eye-opening.
general, and they treated you one way. You stopped working for the general, and they treated you less than?
Yeah, because I couldn't do anything for them anymore.
Oh.
Interesting.
That was very eye-opening for me.
Yeah.
Because before then I'd been very naive, thinking that people were, who they presented themselves as, and it's like, oh no, you were just being nice because of where I sat.
Yeah. That's that's always a jarring reality, isn't it? Carrie, what's your example? You would have good ones, I feel like.
No.
Okay. Well, I built that up. Sorry.
You did. No, I have this really bad habit of I meet a character in a show or a movie or a book, and I realize that I'm supposed to hate them for some reason. But I really want to like them, and I want them to be good, and my main thing, I'm hoping, this is one of those situations where it's opposite in the fact that I hope they turn out differently than I think they are.
Yeah.
Loki.
Oh yeah.
I
A
want
lot of reaction in the
Loki.
room from that.
There's a lot of head nodding. I'm not the only one. I really hope that Loki is different than who he first presented himself to be.
All right, so there's the hope for that.
Yes, because what he was first was bad, and now I want him to be good.
He's so nuanced.
It's interesting.
I know. And that's the biggest thing that I've learned. I'm 42. I will be 43 this year, and I'm just now learning this. It's hard for me. I used to want everybody to be black and white, good or bad, evil or, godly or whatever. I want that distinction. And I'm learning that I'm really loving the characters that are a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have lots of depth, and I really like when the portrayal, like Tom Hiddleston does a fantastic job as Loki, and
Yes.
and showing all of those sides, and that's always fun. And I was thinking of another. If you've read the book Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste, however you say her last name, it's Ng maybe, and
Sounds right.
there's a character, the mother, and I didn't like her at all in the book. I mean, I just completely unlikable character. And then I watched the series. They made a TV series or whatever, I don't know, Netflix bingeable things, Hulu maybe. And Reese Witherspoon played her.
Oh.
And she actually made her somewhat sympathetic. And I'm like, oh, this is different. Because then the other character that I liked the best in the book, I didn't like as well.
Yeah.
In the series, it was really interesting.
Yeah. Another one is I'm sorry, I'm taking
No, I knew we were going to, once the ball started rolling,
yeah.
I knew there would be so many.
Hunger Games, Haymitch.
Yeah.
When I first read Hunger Games, if you haven't yet, let me tell you, it is really good. When I first read it, I didn't really want to like Haymitch, and I didn't
Yeah.
think I thought he was just, by the end, you start to really see who he really is deep down, and everything changes in my perspective. But then they got Woody Harrelson to play the part in the movie, and it just did not match in my head. But by the time I finished watching the movies, I'm like, oh, he was the perfect Haymitch. And that is the biggest exciting
one.
thing for me when it turns out that what I thought may have been wrong about it's usually me being wrong about the person more than them changing.
Yeah,
but
like letting you.
Yeah,
you down
but-
some way. I was thinking of, and I don't know which Mission Impossible. There were so many Mission Impossible movies. There are like 27 of them or something. That may not be right, but it
It's
feels
like
like there are
Rocky.
27 of them. And so there's one of them where they introduce this part of this idea. I don't know, this thing that happens where literally every single person pulled off their face and it was a mask. Like, I mean, they went to that well so many times, I felt like. And every scene would happen, and you're like, this is probably just a person in the mask. And sure enough, this person pulls their face off, and it's somebody else. And then, like, a couple of times, and this might be wrong, I feel like their face got pulled off more than once. And I'm like, how many masks is this person wearing? Like, how many masks is this person actually wearing right now? And
Yeah.
how and how realistic could you possibly make a mask like that
Yes.
to make somebody believe that it was somebody else? Anyway, that the first time it happened, I was like, what? That was crazy. And then like the 14th time it happened, I thought, it's the dumbest thing that they keep doing this over and over. You got to have something else to go to, right? All right, so sometimes we come across these people, right, or characters or whatever else in movies, in books, in real life, people that we work with or work for or any number of things, who we really believe are going to be one thing or present themselves as one way, and then all of a sudden we find out they're something different. You can use a lot of terms for that, any number of them. One is like being hypocritical, though, right? Like being a hypocrite. You're saying that you're one way and then you act a different way. And one of the things, as we talked about why come to church, we really honed in on, like, why don't people potentially come to church? And one of the things we said was, man, there are so many people in the church that come across as hypocritical. And that's such a turnoff. You hear that pretty frequently if you're if you're somebody that goes to church. Like that's feedback that you know that you hear about church in general. And so our conversation tonight is going to be, we're going to just talk about that a little bit and our experiences with that, because even if you're somebody that's still in church, that's something that you've probably experienced.
Yeah.
Right? And then we're also going to talk a little bit about what we do with that. This is actually, that part right there, that's what you hear us talk about right before this starts.
Yeah.
Like, that's what we're going to do.
Sabrina brought up Professor Snape in Harry Potter.
Oh, see, we
Ooh.
can't do spoilers, though.
Oh, that's okay. I actually
Too late.
like spoilers. Just so you know, Sabrina, I'm in book 2. I've never read the books until now, and I have only seen the first movie. I've never read the books or seen the movie until now. And I'm really hoping that Snape is somebody I will eventually like. He's another one that I'm like, I
He was
don't
one you were already-
know how this is going to go, but I really want him to be likable.
He is very nuanced, I will say
Yeah.
that. And here's a fun fact. So J.K. Rowling actually shared the ending with Alan Rickman, basically because he asked her flat out. But she wouldn't tell anybody else, like, where their characters would go. But she told him at the beginning, like,
good.
what his arc was so that he could act
Play
that.
it right.
Yeah, it was
So interesting.
Oh, don't worry, Sabrina. You don't have to apologize. I love spoilers. You don't have to spoiler alert me. I do. Because I read the last page of the book. Usually. I
Yeah, you
haven't
told me
yet.
that. That's crazy.
I haven't yet in Harry Potter. I've restrained myself because so Susan won't smack me. But yeah, it's still early. So don't worry about it. You didn't ruin anything for me. But yeah,
Okay,
you
so
were talking about hypocrites.
yeah, hypocrites. And I'm going back and forth in my mind right now as to how, like, what order I want to do this in. And I'm going to do it in the order I originally put it in, because I did it that way for a reason whenever I put this together. So in Matthew 23, Jesus actually talks a lot about hypocrisy and religious leaders of the time and religious people at the time, and them being hypocrites and what that looks like, and all kinds of things. Actually, in Matthew 23, he ends up, it's called like the seven woes of the hypocrites or something like that. I don't know. It's like several things in a row where he says, "Woe to you, the hypocrite," something. I probably botched that a little bit, but you get the picture. You read it yourself. Matthew 23, you'll figure it out. And then you can call me out on it later, and I'll say, I told you I didn't know. But one of the things he said that I thought was super interesting, and the way it's worded I thought was really great. So this is Jesus, again, talking to his disciples and other people that are listening to him. He said, the religion scholars and Pharisees are good teachers. They're competent teachers in God's law. You won't necessarily go wrong following their teachings on Moses, like the law, early parts of the Old Testament. But be careful about following them, like themselves, like what they do. They talk a good line, but they don't live it. They don't take it into their hearts and live it out in their behavior. It's all spit and polish veneer. Instead of giving you God's law as food and drink by which you can live on, and I thought this was such great imagery. They package it in bundles of rules, loading you down like pack animals. And so think about that for a second, right? Being that image, like an animal, like a donkey, whatever. I know that's not necessarily what we use a lot these days, but I'm sure we've all seen old movies, cartoons, whatever. These old pack animals packed down with all this gear, And that feeling, because we can relate to that, right? Sometimes we have that feeling of being like just so much weight on us, being packed on like all we have to carry to be doing like what we're supposed to do. And imagine that that's what is being put on us, Jesus says, by these religious leaders. They make it to where it feels like that instead of feels like something that you can feed off of and energizes you. Okay, so my question is, and feel free, again, maybe leave out names, or I guess don't. I can't control what you do, but probably leave out names. But have you ever, in what ways, has somebody in a church, somebody that claims to be a Christian, or is a Christian, even, I'll say that, in what ways has somebody in that position made you feel very burdened by everything you're supposed to do before? Or do you have any personal experiences feeling like that? Love to hear from you. Love to hear what some of your experiences are out there. And this is one of those times where hopefully like being open and vulnerable is fine. That's fine. And don't feel like you have to be, but we're really okay with that here, getting a little bit more serious. We've shifted really quick from like Harry Potter to how have you been hurt by somebody in the church before. But I think it's important that we talk about it, because if we don't talk about it, we can't come to any kind of resolution about it.
Let me count the ways.
Yeah. All right, who wants to jump in as they type away?
Um,
We're so quick to answer.
Oh man, this one's a little harder, just because.
I'll tell you what, I'll get us started. I have kind of an example, and again, I'll leave names, whatever else out. But there was a friend of mine that I was really close to, and just came across some hard times, some rough personal experiences, and that they were going through, this person and their family. And I just got the sense, and I was a little bit younger, but I just got the sense like there was a chance for a bunch of church people to come around and love this person and their family, or there was a chance to really focus in on any of the wrong that had been done, and to highlight that. And I really felt like everything about me wanted to believe that I was going to watch people come around and love, and I did not get to witness that. That was not what I witnessed. I witnessed more of like the focus on, this is how you were wrong, this is what has to happen because of that. And then because they're a friend of mine, friend of their family and everything, I ended up watching how that impacted them beyond just that moment, but impacted them for a while longer. And I'll be honest with you, it sucked to watch. And for a while, I was like, church is dumb.
Yeah.
Like, people in church are dumb.
People in church are dumb.
Yeah.
I have several stories. The idea is trying to figure out which one
Sure.
to share. But I will read a few of what's going on online. John says,
Yeah, please do.
Pastor John says, some of my deepest relational pain has come from, quote, friends in the church. Sabrina gets very open about things that went on in her childhood, how it was corrupt and everything. Thank you for sharing all of these things. They're sad to see, but it's nice that we're being open with each other in this way. I like this.
Yeah.
There was one situation where it wasn't necessarily me feeling the burden or the pain, but seeing it put upon other people.
Mm-hmm.
There was a young man who it was in my youth group, and I was a youth leader, and he wasn't raised in church. He didn't really understand a lot of what was happening, and he was very opinionated about a lot of things. He somehow, I don't know what exactly happened, but he strayed from church and stopped coming around. And it was because he said hypocrites, and he just got tired of seeing hypocrites in the church. Well, one day a person in our church posted something online, and it was cringeworthy what was posted. It didn't show love. It was a meme that was meant to be funny, but it did not show love to particular demographics in our world. And this kid, who's now in his 20s, commented on it about how awful it was that this was shared. And I totally got where he was coming from. I didn't agree with it being posted either. But what I saw in response on the comments was godly men in our church, board members, not this church, it was previous churches. It was one of my previous churches, but board members commenting just hate back at this guy for him, clapping back at what he saw that he didn't think was very godly. And all that happened was more ungodliness. And I jumped in.
Good. Yeah, it's good.
I could not help it. And I said,
Yeah.
look, the only thing that happens here, you didn't prove any point. You didn't do anything good. All you showed today was that a person who has left the church left for good reason, because he's not seeing love from godly people today.
Yeah.
He's seeing nothing but hate from godly people today. Godly, in quotes, people today.
Sure.
I was a little brutal. But it just made me so angry that, like I said, a previous church, not this one, just so much hate. And it came from a place of defensiveness.
Yes. So often, right?
Yes. It came from a place of defensiveness that was unnecessary. And it turned to hateful really quickly. And I hated that. I was so angry forever.
Yeah.
And people were coming up to me going, you really jumped up. I'm like, yeah. And I wish I had said it to their faces. I wish I could have said it to their face. I would have been a lot less diplomatic in person.
It'd be harder to.
And
Oh.
we've talked about that recently too. Christians misrepresenting Christianity
Yes.
and
Yeah,
how
we did, yeah.
frustrating that is, because oh gosh, if people don't agree exactly with what you're doing, then they lambast
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
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 If you're just kind of jumping in with us, we all hate people in church. No, that's just I'm just kidding. No, but unfortunately,
Only half of them.
too many of us, right, have had experience, whether we have ever gone to church. Maybe you're out there and you've never gone to church and you're thinking, yeah, these are the exact reasons why not. But we want to make sure that it's understood that this isn't something that's just like you out there who happens to be outside of a church, or you out there who's been in church and like, I felt this way before. Maybe it's just a problem with me. Unfortunately, people are not perfect. And that's not an excuse to make things that happen or get said okay, but it is unfortunately reality. And we wanted to make sure we took a little bit of time to share that this is something that probably too many of us, if not almost all of us, that in church or outside of church have experienced at some point, right? This idea of like running into people that say they are one thing and then act out a different way that is actually potentially very hurtful to people we love, to ourselves, we know plenty of you out there. And we want to make sure that was known, right? That's a thing that exists, and that's that we're saying that's not okay. Our problem is, though, like, what do we do with that, right? Like, or no, maybe even before that. Let's say, like, so you have an experience like this. I have an experience like I had. Susan, you've had your experiences. You out there have had your experiences that you've shared, that you have in your mind, that have been negative experiences with Christians or church people, or any number of, however you want to package that, being hypocritical. So if you're somebody that has gotten past that moment, or that is still, maybe let's word it this way. If you're somebody that's still involved with church after a moment like that, why is that? Why are you still involved with church if that's the experiences you've had? I'd be really curious to know from you as well, if that is an experience you've had, or you have had these types of experiences. Are you still involved, and why? If not, you really don't have to explain why, because the stories are why, right?
Yeah.
But
We already know.
But I'd be interested to know why you are still involved if you've had kind of those negative experiences. Even Sabrina, I love the imagery you used, and I'll mess it up now. I'm not going to try to find it real quick on my phone, but it was something along the lines of like being felt like I was so icky that I would never be good enough for God, something like that. Man, that's a strong feeling to have, right? And to have that put on you. But yet, we know that you're still involved in church. And so
Yeah.
how do you get to that point? How do you overcome, maybe, or what keeps you here, I guess?
I as soon as we started talking about this, I thought back to when I was in high school, and I was sitting in a church service going, "This is stupid. Why am I here? I don't believe anything that's happening." I mean, I was in full internal meltdown. Nobody around me knew what was going on in my brain, but it wasn't pretty. And because I was seeing things that I'm like, God, this doesn't track, you know. I mean, I've grown up in church. I've read scripture. I've been taught by some really godly, great people. The things that I'm seeing leaders do, or seeing so and so do, or hearing this or hearing that, they just don't track with what I think is God's plan. And I'm sitting in church mostly praying that, because I didn't want to be there anyway, so I might as well talk to God while I'm there. And all I heard back was God saying to me, "Look at me, not at them. Look at me, not at them." And I cannot tell you how many church services I sat in as a senior in high school, as a freshman in college, just hearing God say over and over again, "Look at me, not at them. Look at me, not at them." And that's when I realized in that moment, I believe in God. I love God. Jesus is my hero, and more. So the problem isn't that for me. Personally, that wasn't the problem. The problem that I was experiencing was the perceptions of God and Jesus that didn't track for me. So the only thing I can't walk away, because I'd be walking away from something I feel is true in God and Jesus. So the only thing I can do is try to be better at being a representative of who God and Jesus really are.
Yeah, I think that's really good.
That was I was, because if not, I would not be if all of that didn't happen, and if I didn't hear that, I would not be in church today. And I'm a pastor, so.
Yeah. Janie had mentioned when someone experiences racism in church, it hurts beyond belief. I thought that was, I can only imagine. And she also, in response to our more recent question, she was saying because all people are still human and can't control why people think like that, you end up feeling actually sorry for that person and wanting to be able to pray or encourage those people instead in another way. I thought that was, again, speaks to maturity on your part, obviously, Janie, in that situation. And then Sabrina had said, I think the turning point for me was hearing testimonies, listening to lives being changed because of the paths people chose to be on. That was kind of a turning point that helped her get past some of the things that maybe growing up she came across that weren't great feeling. Susan, were you going to add anything as far as...
No, I agree with everybody. Carrie was talking about, and I think I was the exact same way when I was in high school and in college, and because I had seen so much of we're here in church to keep up appearances, or we're here in church to not practice what we preach, shall we say, and so it was very difficult, and I've talked before about how I just decided that I would compartmentalize, right? I wouldn't worry about the rest of the people. Didn't matter what they thought. It was going to be between me and God. That's all that mattered, right? There are other problems with that, but that's what it was, and
Sure.
that's how I dealt with it, right? I just focused on that. What you were saying is, just look at me, just look at me, and that's good. What Sabrina said about testimonies, I have heard so many of those too, and then I kind of felt bad because I'm like, okay, what kind of Christian am I? Because I haven't had this road to Damascus, light
Sure.
shining down on
Yeah.
me kind of experience. It's like I'm not a good representative, but there are people who choose, and I think that's the word, right? It's our choice to continue coming to church and realizing that people are human. I think Janie said that, and that we're here to help one another, and that we need one another to share burdens and to just really remind us why we're really here.
Yeah.
What you were talking about in Matthew 23, where Jesus is talking about the religious leaders and how they're very, very educated on the law.
Yeah.
And they know the rules. And they preach a lot about the rules. And I'm not sure if they practice what they preach, and maybe they intend to, but I don't know. But I think there's so much of a focus of that and forgetting the intent of the law, and that we're supposed to love one another and love God, and that's really all there is to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't about right and wrong, doing this and not that, going here, not doing this. It wasn't about that. The whole purpose of the law was to connect us, or connect God's people back to God.
Yeah.
And once you forget that big picture of the reason for them, then they just become rules and rituals,
Yeah.
not there's no end.
Yeah.
There's no meaning. There's no purpose.
Yeah,
for
it's
it.
not. It doesn't exist anymore to put you in a good position
Yeah.
to be in best relationship anymore with
Yeah.
God. Yeah, it's
And
just about the rule.
When we started talking about this, I hope I'm not jumping the gun.
No, go for it.
When we started talking about this series, you brought up something, Susan, in the first meeting. You said something that Gandhi said. Do you remember?
You're like, I know it
I
said
like
something.
your Christ, but I don't like your Christians.
I like
that
your
one?
Christ, but I don't like your Christians.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been times when I've been like, ooh, I like you, Jesus, but your people stink to high heaven. No, but
Jesus was Jewish too.
yeah.
It's true.
But yeah, it comes to that. There's a verse somewhere in Scripture. I'm not gonna be able to do the reference where it says iron sharpens iron, and that means that when we get together in church, that's what we're called to do. So when I see somebody being hateful in the name of God to someone else, I'm going to be like, let's talk this out a little bit, and I'm going to hopefully be the iron that sharpens that to make them better at being representatives of God. And the same thing, if I'm doing something, I'm going to want somebody to go, Carrie, you're not really being Jesus in a nice way right now. And you may have to say it that bluntly to me.
Sure.
Because that's the only way I'm going to learn. I don't learn from the things I do right. I learn from the things I do wrong.
Yeah.
And
You
I'm
know,
going
a
to
lot-
need that fixed.
A lot of us are that way, right? And I think that there has to come a time where there's accountability within a community and
Yeah.
within relationships, right?
Yeah, and
a-
it's not even just
Yeah, and you have to be open to that, though.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's not even just the iron sharpen iron thing. I love scholarly learning. I love reading. I love writing. I love the knowledge. But sometimes I am lacking in the emotion that goes with it. So if I come here to a church service sometime, or I'm in a quad with a few ladies, or if I'm at in the middle of a conversation, and I see somebody welling up whenever they talk about God, that encourages me, because I'm like, oh, I want that, and
Yes.
I can too heavily focus one way or the other. We need each other to balance.
Yes, those testimonies are huge, and it's as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Proverbs 27:17.
There you go.
excellent. So we started trending this direction, which was perfect, right?
So-
No, that's good.
Great
Like
segue.
it's the natural progression of the conversation is trending this direction. As we get ready to kind of close out, because it goes infinitely fast every time. So if you're out there and you happen to be somebody that's still on the church side of this, you're still in church, you've had some maybe negative experiences, as all of us do, but you're still in church. Let's not end the night without the focus of why come to church, right? That's kind of what we were talking about. Why would I come to church? If it's just got people in church that are hypocritical,
Yeah.
potentially, why would I come if I can focus just on me and God? And so that's kind of how we're going to end, is this question. Why would somebody that's maybe not going to church now, especially focused around this conversation, why is it important that they would come to church? There's quite possibly people out here that are going to watch that don't go to church and are thinking, yeah, I agree with a lot of the stuff you're saying, until the end when you're like, maybe you should still come to church. So why is that? Why is that it's important? Why would you personally out there, some of you that have been commenting, it's been so good, thank you for that. Why would you say to somebody, hey, even with all that crap that's involved, this is why it's still worthwhile to come to church and to experience community in that way? it's less about just showing up at church. I don't want to angle it that way, but in being involved in a community with Christian people. Why is that important to experience God in community with Christians or with just other people? Why is that important still, even if there are hypocrites? What would we say is the importance of that?
Someone looked at me
Or
once
is it worth it?
when I was complaining about hypocrites in the church, when I was, in my 20s and knew everything. They looked at me and they said, if you find a perfect church, don't go to it. And I said, why? They said, 'cause you'll ruin it. And I'm like, well, that's loving. No, but the
That's
truth,
loving.
it's kind of the truth thing. There's no one's perfect. No church is perfect. But if we're going and we're being a part of it, that whole iron sharpens iron thing, if we're living in community, we're going to be able to grow, be encouraged, be strengthened better than if I'm trying to do it all by myself.
Exactly.
By myself, I'll screw it up.
Lord knows I will. That's one of the things that we loved the most about this church when we came in, and I think they still have the same welcome packets that they did when we first came in 2017, I think. And it talks about who are we, and we're just a ragtag group of believers or something like that. And it's like that really, really resonated with me because we're none of us perfect, and we're all learning. And the reason that it's so good to come to a church, and it is totally worth it, is, yeah, I can do some of this studying on my own, and I can pray on my own, and I can sing worship songs in my car or in my shower or wherever. But when you come together, you learn from each other, you hear different testimonies, you hear different perspective, and it just magnifies the growth. It really makes it all the more, I can't think of the word, but it's just, I feel that connection more with God when I'm around people who are also looking to understand God. Not people who think that they know him or know everything and want to preach to others and feel that they're above others, but people who are reaching for him because they need him,
Yeah, no, I think that's really good.
Sabrina says it's important to stay in the Word, to talk about the changing times and apply the Word to the times, to find people you can figure things out with and see that you're not alone.
Yeah. There's something about that, right? Like the aspect of community. Hopefully, if you've listened to this very much, listened to us talk, you've caught that theme, right? It's way more about community and experiencing life with one another than it is about how many times did you come and just enter the building and sit down in a certain room and sing certain songs and listen to somebody preach. That happens to be what we do at times, but it's not all we do. And the community aspect is so much more a part of that. Yeah.
Janie says, come to church because you're going to grow as an individual with the help of others. For those that are real and really want to love you as a person, to help you grow into the child of God that he wants you to be.
Yeah, and I was just going to add too. I mean, this is more than just coming to church for an hour on Sunday.
Oh yeah.
This is about growing as a community and developing small groups, coming together. Like men's group actually just left a little while ago because they met tonight.
We know when they left because they were loud. When
they were loud.
They were loud.
I personally missed the last if table that the ladies had, and I hated that because sometimes you think, oh no, I just need to stay home, I'm tired or whatever. But then you realize after the fact that, oh, but I missed it. I missed it because you get so much out of it. So yeah, it's more than just the going to church on Sunday. It's all of the little things together.
You know, I was, I guess, fortunate is what you'd say over the last couple of years with everything with COVID and stuff being so shut down, just because of some of the stuff I was involved in. I felt like there was not a significant interruption for me in consistently coming together with people in a church setting, people that were specifically wanting to talk about conversations like this and talk about God and learn more together and things like that. And we eventually ran into a spot where, we had to quarantine here just in the last month or so, and for a bit, just to, be safe and everything like that. And in doing so, I missed out on being a part of our last Living Hope Online, and missed being at 2 consecutive Sundays and things like that. and missed a group that I get together with on Saturdays a couple times a month of just a handful of guys. And I found really quickly how much that impacted me because we're not created, no matter what our personalities are. Carrie and I talk frequently, like I could probably stay inside my house all the time and be fine.
Yep.
But the reality is I actually couldn't. As much as I feel like I couldn't. Because we're created very much to experience life with each other. And if you're remotely in belief that there is a God out there, or right here even, right where you're at, if there is a God, if there's some other power that's bigger than you, and that you want to encounter it because that God wants to encounter you, that power wants to encounter you, that love wants to encounter you, then all I can tell you is that my experience has been, and a lot of people I know have had the experience, that they can encounter that love and they can encounter that power and they encounter that God way more easily and in a way more robust way with others. Because how Susan experiences God and relates to God and how God speaks to Susan is different than how God relates to me, because I'm a different person than Susan. And while there are many similar truths there, the type of way that Susan gets to experience that's different. The type of way that Carrie experiences that is different, or a Morgan or a John or a Sabrina, Janie. You guys, and when we can come together and share, then all of a sudden I learn things about God that I was not going to learn otherwise. Not because God didn't want to reveal it to me, but because God wanted to reveal it to me through Carrie and through Janie and through Sabrina and through John and through Morgan and through Susan and through all the people that I wanted to encounter and that I took the time to speak with and be in community with. And so there's something to that. And so if you're not a part of church, I love the line, and we kind of contradicted a little bit, but not really. I think you said, look at me, not at them. We will consider people ever, the best person will let you down. The best person that exists now will let you down. Every time. That happens, because nobody's perfect. So at some point, the best person's going to let you down. You can't let that, please don't let that stop you from looking at God, though, and all of the good that God is trying to pass on to you and let you experience through those imperfect and through all of us imperfect people.
If I can.
Yeah. Yep. Go.
Just as if you don't want to be judged by your worst bits, God doesn't want to be judged by his worst. And we're all meant to make each other better.
Yeah, I like that. Guys, thank you so much for the conversation tonight. Like this, share this. I know we say that. Sharing it, hopefully, again, some of these conversations during this stretch especially, because there are people out there that I guarantee you're friends with, and that you would have access to that we don't, that hopefully might be encouraged to either re-engage with God and with others in that way, or do that for the first time. So share the video and maybe really specifically try to ask somebody that you know that might need this to watch it and just talk to you about what they think or something like that. We appreciate you guys. We love being able to be in community with you in a different way like this, and in other more normal ways too. We're going to close out with prayer. My gosh, the time just goes so quick. We're going to close out with prayer. Thank you guys again, and we'll see you in 2 weeks, remember, 2 weeks from now. God, we just thank you so much for who you are, that you are just love. That's a weird concept to sometimes think about, but it's accurate. It's what you say. Now, because of that, we can experience love through you, but also through other people too, and help us to be better at that. Help us to be better at receiving that from other people. I think sometimes we're willing, those of us in church, we're willing to try to share that with other people more than we're willing to even receive it from other people, and maybe grow ourselves. Don't let us get complacent. Help us to keep growing. And for those, God, that maybe come across this video or even part of this video or whatever, I just really pray that they hear you in all of this and not any of us in all of this, but that they can hear from you in all this. And we love you so much, and we just thank you for all you do and who you are, really. Amen. Guys, thank you so much. Hopefully see you in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. We'll see you guys. Good night.
Good night.